High yield income ETFs have exploded in popularity over the last few years, and most of the content that you see covering them does the same thing. Lists the funds, shows the yields, and tells you why they're so amazing. What it skips is the part that actually determines whether these funds can work for a retirement account, which is whether they can even sustain that yield without slowly returning your own capital right back to you, and they dress it all up as income and you have no idea. There's one fund on this list that a lot of people are holding right now, specifically because of its high yield. It's also quietly one of the worst long-term retirement vehicles in this category. And I'm gonna walk through all 5, including that one, and be honest about both sides of each. So here's kind of something worth understanding before we get into these specific funds, right? Covered call ETFs, they generate income by selling call options on stocks that they hold, okay? The premium that they collect from doing that, right, those options, right, gets passed to us shareholders as monthly distributions. That's the income mechanism. It's real, the premium is earned, but it comes with a trade-off, right? When the market rallies, the options cap your upside. You collect the premium, but you're missing out on more of that upside appreciation. The critical variable is how much of that portfolio the option strategy actually covers. A fund that sells calls on 100% of its holdings generates obviously the most premium, but it surrenders all of its upside participation. A fund that covers 60 to 80% retains some of its participation potential while still generating some meaningful income for us. And that design choice is what separates funds that hold their NAV over time from funds that really slowly erode, right? And this matters a lot for retirement, specifically because of the time horizon. A fund that loses 1% NAV monthly while distributing 10% annually has a total return of negative 2% annually. Over 10 years, that's a meaningfully smaller capital base, which means less income in the years that you obviously need it most, right? And the filter that I apply to every income ETF before holding it in a retirement-oriented portfolio comes down to 3 big questions. First, is the distribution covered by what the fund actually earns, meaning dividends plus options premiums? Or is it partially funded by returning me my own capital? Return of capital isn't always bad, but a fund that consistently distributes more than it earns is literally liquidating itself over time. Number 2, what does this total stock return look like over a full market cycle, not just the distribution? A fund that yielded 12% but whose NAV declined 9% annually has a 3% total return. That's not a retirement income tool. That's literally a slow liquidation. And 3, what happens when the fund's income in a low volatility environment? Options premium, we know this, they compress when the market gets quiet. A fund whose distributions depend heavily on elevated implied volatility will pay out less in calm markets, exactly when retirees feel most comfortable and less prepared for an income cut. And that's why I always recommend learning to sell your own options on good quality dividend paying stocks like Dividend Kings and Dividend Aristocrats. I walk through that whole entire Ark Options strategy in the Ark Options workshop. So click that first link in the description of today's video. At the end of that training, I also give you my 2 premium calculators as well as my full trade lock template completely for free. And those 3 questions, they shape every assessment I'm about to give you right here. First one we got to talk about, JEPI, right? This is the benchmark for this category, in my opinion. JEPI is the JP Morgan Equity Premium Income ETF. It actively selects lower volatility S&P 500 stocks, and it generates income through ELNs, equity-linked notes. This is essentially a synthetic covered call instrument tied to the S&P 500 index. Current yield, 7 to 9%, depending obviously on the market conditions, right? JEPI's NAV has held reasonably well through multiple market cycles since its 2020 launch, including, and this is important, the 2022 bear market where many competitors struggled. The lower volatility equity book underneath also absorbs a lot of drawdowns way better than a full index exposure. And the ELN structure generates consistent premium without requiring the most aggressive, coverage ratios. But the honest risk is this: in a strong bull market, listen, JEPI is noticeably underperforming, passive S&P 500 funds because the options obviously cap limits on our upside, right? Especially in sharp rallies. For an income-focused retiree who isn't trying to beat the index, and it might have been an acceptable trade-off. But for someone, expecting both high income and full market upside, JEPI, it might disappoint you on one side. JEPQ next, higher yield, higher volatility exposure for us. JEPQ obviously follows the same kind of structural logic as JEPI, but it uses the NASDAQ 100 as its equity exposure because the NASDAQ stocks, listen, they carry more implied volatility for us, right? Way more than the S&P 500, and the options premium it generates, right, are a lot more. Therefore, we see that in the yield tends to run 1 to 2 percentage points higher, if not more, than JEPI under similar market conditions. But the flip side is this: NASDAQ heavy portfolios, they're more volatile in both directions, okay? In a tech sell-off, JEPQ drops way more than JEPI. In a tech-led rally, it also participates more, though still limited by the covered call overlay. Okay, for the retirement portfolios, obviously the higher yield comes with a need for slightly more volatility tolerance in the equity component. I hold both JEPI and JEPQ. They complement each other. Different sectors, tilts generating income from two different parts of the market, which means I got some sector-specific stress and one doesn't hit both equally, okay? Next is QQQI, a very good tax-efficient alternative. QQQI is the NEOS NASDAQ 100 high-income ETF. Unlike JEPQ, it holds all 100 NASDAQ stocks passively, like QQQ, and it sells S&P 500 index options on approximately 60 to 80% of its portfolio as its income overlay. But two things to distinguish QQQI from JEPQ structurally, okay? First, the partial options coverage means QQQI retains more upside participation than a fully covered fund. Number two, those index options fall under IRS Section 1256, giving them a 60-40 tax split, 60% tax as long-term capital gains, 40% tax as short-term, right? Regardless of your holding period. Obviously, for investors in taxable accounts, that tax treatment is a genuine structural advantage that shows up very, very meaningfully in after-tax income. QQQI's NAV has also been more stable than full coverage NASDAQ options funds, which reflects the partial overlay design, right? The yield is comparable, obviously, to JEPQ as well in most environments. The key question when comparing these two, though, is the account type. QQQI tax advantage matters in a taxable brokerage account, and it becomes irrelevant, obviously, inside of like a Roth, right? And SPYI, the S&P 500 version, right? Similar structure. SPYI, NEOS S&P 500 equivalent, holds the full S&P 500 passively and sells S&P 500 index options on the portion of that portfolio. Same section, 1256 tax treatment, same partial coverage design, anchored to the S&P 500 rather than the NASDAQ here, okay? But what SPYI adds to the portfolio that already holds JEPI and QQQI is broad S&P 500 exposure with tax-efficient income overlay and lower sector concentration than NASDAQ-heavy alternatives. In a year where tech underperforms and the broader S&P 500 holds steadier, SPYI's different index exposure provides some insulation for us, right? And total return on SPYI has tracked its benchmark reasonably well since its inception. Obviously, the partial coverage means it participates meaningfully in the upside without that full index performance. For a taxable account, building an income floor, SPYI and QQQI together cover two different market segments with very similar tax efficiency. Now let's talk about the trap. Let's talk about the trap that most people don't recognize. QYLD is the fund I promised to flag, and honestly, this is the one with the significant problem. I lost a lot of money on this one years ago. QYLD generates income by selling covered calls on 100% of its NASDAQ 100 exposure. That full coverage produces a yield that has historically run from 10 to 12%, which is why it shows up on the best income ETF list constantly. The number looks great. The long-term outcome, it doesn't, okay? Because QYLD sells calls on its entire portfolio, it surrenders literally all of its appreciation when the NASDAQ rallies in a bull market. The fund collects premium, but the NAV, it doesn't grow at all. Meanwhile, distributions are continuing to go out. The result over time is NAV erosion. The share price slowly declines because the fund literally can't build value through appreciation while it's distributing most of what it earns. Over the 5-year period ending early 2026, QQQ, the underlying index, delivered substantial total returns. QYLD held over the same period with distributions reinvested, returned a fraction of that, right? The high yield masked the fact that the underlying capital, it was shrinking. Anyone using QYLD as a retirement income anchor and focusing only on the monthly distributions, missed the slow erosion of the principal generating that income. This is what I mean by trap. It works exactly as it's designed, right? And the design is wrong for long-term retirement income, in my opinion. The difference between the funds that work for retirement and the ones that doesn't comes down to one design decision: how much of the portfolio the option strategy covers. Partial coverage, 60 to 80%, it preserves enough of that appreciation potential that the fund can hold or grow its NAV over time. Full coverage eliminates that buffer completely, and without appreciation, a distributing fund slowly erodes. One of the pillars of the full Ark Options strategy is our own appreciation sales on stocks that we sell our own options on. The practical takeaway for a retirement portfolio: high yield alone is not the selection criteria. The question is whether that yield is sustainable without eating the principal that produces it. A fund that yields 10% and holds its NAV is better than a fund that yields 12% and declines 8% annually. The math is simple once you look at total return rather than just that distribution line. For income-focused investors who want to hold multiple funds in this category, mix in that S&P 500 and NASDAQ exposure, JEPI or SPYI alongside JEPQ or QQQI provides diversification across market segments while also maintaining the income generation mechanism. Account type also determines which versions you should prioritize. Section 1256 funds in taxable accounts, standard cover call ETFs in Roth accounts where tax treatment is obviously irrelevant. Look, I hold JEPI and JEPQ, QQQI and SPYI as the core of my income floor. I don't hold QYLD, and I haven't since I understood how the full coverage structure affects long-term NAV. What I watch on these positions periodically isn't the distribution amount, it's the total return. If a fund's NAV is declining consistently outside the broad market drawdowns, that's the signal that something structural is off. I'd rather hold a fund yielding 7% with stable NAV than one yielding 11% with slow erosion. I also think about the mix across account types, right? That section 1256 funds, right, QQQI and SPYI, are way more valuable in my taxable account. JEPI and JEPQ, which distribute primarily as ordinary income, are way better suited for my tax-advantaged accounts. And that placement decision doesn't show up in any yield comparison, but it affects how much of the income that I actually get to keep. I got some questions for you guys in the comments. We always have great conversations down there. Number one, are you currently holding any of these 5 funds? And has NAV erosion ever factored into how you think about them? Or have you been focused primarily on the distributions? And number two, is there a fund in this category that you're watching that I didn't cover, right? Drop the ticker and what you drew from it. Also, if you enjoy this content, make sure to hit that like and that subscribe button. If you want to take your education deeper, make sure to attend the Ark Options Strategy Workshop. It will be the first link down below in the description of today's video. I dive way into more depth on selling options and running the full Ark Options Strategy. And at the end, I give you my 2 premium calculators as well as my full trade log template completely for free. So click that first link in the description of today's video, guys. Remember, sell options, collect premiums, repeat. I'll see y'all tomorrow.